Welcome to the Been There, Done That, Let's Chat podcast. My name is Russ Hagan, and on this podcast, my aim is to raise awareness around men's mental health and suicide prevention. As men, we don't talk enough about our feelings and our internal battles. This is what I'm trying to change. Today's guest is former NRL great Benny Ross. Benny talks openly and honestly about the severe injuries he suffered in his football career, the work he does as an advocate for men's mental health, and how feeling like a burden almost led him to take his own life. So welcome, Benny. Thanks for coming, mate.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, mate. Just a bit of a chat, mate. As you know, this is a bit about men's mental health, suicide prevention. So yeah, just a basic chat, buddy. We'll start probably. Mate, growing up, where'd you grow up, buddy?
Yeah, so I'm a Queensland boy.
Yep.
Most people think I come from Penrith because I love Penrith so much, but it's one of those things. Yeah, I was born in Chinchilla. Moved in literally within the first year. We moved into central Queensland, into a place called Blackwater, mining town.
Yep.
So got a few harsh realities straight then and there. Mining town, so tough life. Sort of that male-dominated area. But lived there for 10 years and then moved to the Sunshine Coast to get a better education and do a few things like that. But when I was 17, I ended up moving down to Sydney to play football.
Oh, yeah, nice. Yeah, mining town would have been hard. I know myself, like with my website, I get a lot of calls from blokes from different mining towns, country towns, like anywhere out west, and, you know, they find it hard to be able to connect with blokes and chat like we are now because they get called soft and weak and whatever, so there's a lot of troubles.
It's tough. It's a tough environment for those type of people where you're working 12, 14-hour days underground and you're coming up, everyone goes to the pub, everyone smokes, everyone's got an unhealthy diet, and as you said, they don't talk, they go in and they gamble, and it's just like every bad move after every bad move, and you just see it. Unless they're fly in, fly out, they're stuck in that rut.
It just snowballs, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So then, mate, moved to Sydney for footy. And who Dragons was your debut?
Dragons.
First,
I was actually I was headhunted by the Bulldogs.
Okay.
Pretty much
Should
ready.
Should have gone there, buddy.
I know.
Bulldogs are good, mate.
I went to sign with them, and then I had sort of a reality check that I never really wanted to play footy. There's a big story behind it, but footy wasn't my main objective. I always wanted to go to university and do a few things. And when I was at the Bulldogs, they offered good money and a good contract in regards to living environments and all that. But Dragons at the last minute came in. They knew that I wanted to do education, and they came and said, we'll pay for your whole university. You come here and sign here. And that was pretty much a ticking point for me as to...
Oh, nice. So you say you never really wanted to play footy? That wasn't...
Yeah, I enjoy playing sport.
Yep.
I really love sport. I love rugby league, don't get me wrong. But, I never saw myself as a professional footballer. And that's, as growing up, and Wayne Bennett will probably tell you, I had a camp when I was under 14s, and they earmarked players that could potentially make it, and Wayne was coaching, and I used to muck around and all that kind of stuff, and he actually pulled me aside and said, hey, do you actually want to make it in footy, or are you just here to have fun? And I said, I'm literally here to have fun. I love playing the game, but I never really wanted to be a professional.
Oh, wow, that's interesting, eh?
Yeah.
So you never really trained that hard as a kid? And
always trained hard, always wanted to be the best and all that type of stuff.
Yep.
Like anything I put my mind to, I want to be number one.
Yep.
But it's just, I had a different outlook on life. I see what my dad did in business, and Mum, they ran businesses, and so I just wanted to get ahead, and I didn't see football as that avenue until obviously the Super League came in and things started to progress. Yeah,
because that was good money when Super League come in.
It was.
So you end up doing uni, bud? So
I ended up doing PDHPE.
Yep.
Sort of, I wanted to be a vet, but the time and commitment you had to put into that, and
Yep.
I was also with footy. I decided to do PDHPE, and double handled that with a job as well.
Yep. Oh, nice. That's good.
Yeah.
And then you've been to a few other teams as well, bud. Like Panthers. So you went Panthers after Dragons, was it?
Yeah. So I was at the Dragons for 5 years, and then went to re-sign with them. I just made my first grade debut. I wanted to really. Yeah, it was strange. It was like I couldn't see myself anywhere, but the Dragons really loved the environment. Probably one of the best clubs for, and apart from Penrith now, in regards to their juniors and their upbringing and their avenues. But I was always a Penrith Panthers fan as a kid growing up, and just before I signed with the Dragons, and that was a really good contract, I actually went to my manager and said, listen, mate, I've always had this dream that I've wanted to play for the Panthers if I ever played professional football. And he's like, okay, well, I'll go ask John Lang if he wants to sign you. And 2 days later, he came back and he said, oh, Langie's willing to take you, but at minimum wage. Are you willing to take that? And my contract with the Dragon was pretty good. And I thought, I may as well follow a dream. I'm here. I've done my university. Let's follow a dream. And, yeah, went to the Panthers and never looked back.
Yeah, it's great. Didn't you won a comp there?
Won a comp first year, so it was good. It was Penrith had come out, I think they were last or second last year before, so they'd got some new fellas in and they tried to change the mentality and the environment. And coming from the Dragons, who had they had Luke Bailey, Jason Rolls, Leichfeld, Trent Barrett, Lance Thompson, Sean Timmins, Matt Cooper, Mark Gasnier, like Amos Roberts. They had Luke Padden. So all this team, like they're all representative footballers. So you come from an environment where it was tough. It was a man's world. So you got taught the harsh realities really early, and you learnt to, okay, if it didn't go your way, that you had to stick into it. And I took that mentality there to Penrith.
Yep.
Under Scott Sattler, I just flourished, and it was a really good environment to be in.
And to win a comp, that would have been amazing, eh?
People
don't get to win one.
Yeah, dream come true, and that's the thing. And I think, and that's some of the things I talk to boys about now, is that it probably came too easy. Being at the Dragons, we always won comps, we were in grand finals, and we'd run reserve grade comps when I was there. And so winning a first grade comp, I sort of thought, oh, geez, how easy is this? And
take it for granted a bit.
Took it for granted, and a lot of the boys did.
Yep.
The older boys, they knew how hard it was, but like I was 22 when I won, and then Luke Lewis was 19, and Joel Clinton was 21, and we had all these young kids coming through who've just hit the pinnacle of rugby league.
And you think it's going to happen all the time?
All the time.
Every now and then, that would have been good.
Yeah.
But good to win. Then after that year, 04, 05, State of Origin, mate.
Yeah.
For Queensland, we won't hold that against you. But
mate, you should thank me.
How was that, mate? How was that?
Yeah, that's and I know that you hear different things about the pinnacle of the game, whether it's Australia and Queensland. I just think it is, and that's sort of the mentality. If you ever play professional football and you're from Queensland, you just want to play Origin.
Yeah.
Like it is that. It is amazing to run out on Suncorp Stadium, or we called it Lang Park.
Yeah.
It's just it's mind-boggling that I remember, and I have two occasions when we played on Suncorp, and one was running out behind Danny Nutley in his first and only game for Origin, and he'd been a teammate and all that type of stuff, and running out behind him, and the crowd, it hits you. Like you run out and it's just like, when it goes through, and I get tingles now thinking about it. And as I said, I was taking things for granted. I thought, I've won comps, I've played Origin, this is easy.
And what, you're only 23?
Yeah, 23. Yeah. And just thinking, okay, world at my feet, and ran out behind him, and he's 30. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm running out behind Danny Nutley, good teammate, and he runs out, he turns around, he's crying. And that's when it clicked with me. I'm like, mate, you've got to stop taking this stuff for granted. I'd had 2 or 3 years where I was doing it really easy, and to turn around and see a guy who actually achieved his goals and crying, and a grown man, like one of the best enforcers in the game, crying, it hit home with me and go, hey, wake up to yourself. You need to do right.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great. All by 23.
All by 23, 24, yeah.
And then after that, mate, another thing you won was sexiest man in rugby league, eh? I found that out. I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Jeez, how'd you get that, mate? Front rower.
I didn't want to show you up. I didn't want to show you up walking in the beach. That's why I don't wear Speedos all the time. You guys would be like, oh, yeah, now we know why, yeah. But, it was a good little bit of fun. Like, I was with George Mimas and the SFX group, who hold this competition every year.
Okay,
had the likes of Matt Cooper and those boys in there, and I think they just felt sorry for the big front rower. But mate, it was all fun and games, and I thank it, because obviously it put my name up there in a different capacity, not football, and got out, socialised a bit, and got to meet my wife, and I'm pretty happy about that now.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah,
so good cricket. And you also, mate, Sharks, South as well. You played them guys.
Yeah, and that's I suppose that's when the mental health stuff came in for me. I really, when I went to Sharks, my life got turned upside down. I was one of the biggest signings ever to have it as a front rower in regards to a financially long-term career.
Okay.
I think I signed a 4-year deal there for quite a substantial amount of money, and I'd been at Penrith Grand Final Origins, and everything was clicking in the gear. Everything was great, and trained hard. I knew that I had something. Then Sharks started. I think we went like 5 wins on the trot. We were coming second. Game 7, going back home to Penrith. I thought, I've got something to prove, because I actually left Penrith because we're over the cap. Now, I remember getting sat in a room, and this is probably going back a bit, but John Lang and Shane Richardson sat me in a room in 2005 and said, listen, we're over the cap next year. We've got to shift players on. Yourself and there's 2 or 3 other players that can actually go to another club and command more than what you're on.
Yep.
And I literally broke into tears then and said, listen, I want to play for Penrith. I don't care what the money is. I love the club.
Yeah, because you'd won a comp. Loved it, fellas.
It's you just feel like you want to be a kind of one club player there. Yep. And it wasn't to be, and had a few different options and ended up going to Cronulla. So we started well. We had a fantastic team. It was a really good bond. And Game 7, going back to Penrith, I thought, I've really got to prove something here. Like, I'd made the Australian train-on squad ready. They were about to do the Anzac test. It was the week after we played Penrith. Thought, okay, put it in, just smash them apart. And we were doing that. We were brutal. Like Cronulla, we were a brutal team. And I remember we kicked off and we made the first tackle, got back 10 metres, and then Joel Clinton, my front row partner, was coming. I thought, I've got to whack him. Like, I've got to knock him out. And as I was running, there was a little divot in the ground. I stepped in it and my knee snapped.
Oh.
So I made the tackle, kept trying to play for about a minute or two. My ACL had totally gone. And that's when the spirals, knowing that the next week the Anzac team was being named and I was potentially a runner for that. But then, and just seeing all that happen, it really started to hit home. So, bundle of injuries from then on. So I did my knee. The next year I came back fit. We had Ricky Stewart as a coach. I got knocked out round 2, broke my nose, crossed my face, lost all my teeth. I sort of got through, made the semis. Then I was 07, 08. And then 09, I thought, okay, I'm right back in. I'm really good to go. I'm ready, ripping, tearing. And first game of the season, we end up playing Penrith again. And this is on the midst of, for 2 or 3 years, where I was in and out of form, and fans are hammering you, going, oh, you're overpaid. And they just don't understand. Pressure, they don't understand. They go, oh, you're not playing good, but they don't understand what the struggles you're going through. And I was going through a number of them, like coming back from knee injuries and things. That I played one game with mumps, and you shouldn't be playing with that type of stuff. And I literally fell asleep after coming in off the field, and it was a pretty scary kind of thing. But 09, first game, playing Panthers at home. There was a storm, and I remember the lightning hit the grandstand an hour or 2 before the game, and they're like, oh, we shouldn't be playing this game. The storm was brutal, and I remember we ended up running out in it, and the wind was that strong that they kicked off, and Trent Barrett went to catch it, and the wind moved it across, and ended up bouncing. I caught it and made a break off my first run of the game, and I should have looked left, I looked right, but could have put someone away. And we're playing fantastic footy. We're flogging Penrith, and I thought, okay, I'm back. And Ricky Stewart always had this mentality of a man-like attitude. Hey, if you get injured, if anything's wrong, you just get up and you keep going.
Yeah.
And it always resounds with me that attitude I bring into life. Like, no matter how bad things get, you can always get up and keep going. And right about 10 minutes before the end of the game, went to make a tackle on Adam Woolnough, and I remember it clearly, and I was down low and I was pulling him down. And then we were always a wrestling team, and 2 other guys, I think it was Snowy and Luke Douglas, pushed him back over the other way, and my chin hit my chest and compressed and snapped my spinal cord. So C5, C6, and the disc exploded into my spinal cord, I should say. And I couldn't move my arms. It was really weird that I sort of laid there and they rolled off, and you see the video and they play on, and I sort of couldn't move my arms. But I remember, and I was laying there, I was thinking, something's wrong. My hands were just frozen like that. And I thought, oh, I've got to get up. Ricky Stewart's always said. So I got up and stood against the pole. We were defending our own line. So I didn't want to seem like one man short, and I just lay there against the pole. And I remember Trent Elkin, our trainer, came straight up to me and he goes, I know something's wrong. What's wrong? I said I heard a snap. So he instantly stopped the game. And yeah, and from there it's sort of
scary, eh?
Very scary.
And that was the last game of your career, was it?
No, it wasn't.
No.
So they took me off the field on a stretcher. I could still move my feet, so everyone was thinking, okay, something's wrong, but don't know what, because I couldn't move my arms. And laying there on the bed inside, and the boys were walking in and walking out, and hey, you're okay, and then suddenly it was gone. My legs went. So they took me to hospital. They scanned. They couldn't find anything wrong. They said it must have been swelling around the spinal cord. 2 days later, they had me sitting up in bed a little bit at St George Hospital. and I was in a lot of pain. And they go, okay, we're just going to take you for one more scan. The swelling should be down. And they took me back, and sitting in the room with I was just newly married, only about a year in. Dave Riccio was there. He's a good mate of mine.
Yeah.
We're just sitting there, and I'm sort of in a bit of pain, but just laying. And I remember sitting up, and the doctor literally runs in and goes, hey, you can't be like that. Your spine's broken. Like, everything's broken. You should be lying flat. Like, so the scans were all wrong. And as he said that, there was a cleaner, and then they touched the button, and the bed went bang like that. And mate, I was in excruciating pain. They rushed me in for emergency surgery, and we sort of 2 years worth of rehab after that.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And you say that's when your mental health had some problems with your mental health. Tell us a bit about that, buddy, if you like.
Yeah. So as I said, I recently, it's a hard one. Yeah, it's hard. I remember when I got told, okay, it's fully broken. I remember we had to go straight to St. Vincent's, fair bit of pain. As I said, the bed fell down. Got me into St. Vincent's, and fantastic surgeon there. So Richard Parkinson, I owe him everything. But I remember they taking me in, and my wife was there, and they said, I could hear them talking, they said, he may not ever walk again. So
yeah, shit, that would have been tough, huh?
That's tough.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
My wife came back over to me, and she literally told me, and I said, sorry.
You all right, mate?
It's something I don't like saying, but I literally said to her, if I come out and I can't move, put a pillow on my head and just finish me. So that's literally the last words I said to my wife before I went into the operation. And so pretty extensive operation. As I said, the disc was exploded into my spinal cord. There was a heap of damage, and they didn't know. So it took a fair while, and a lot of recovery. I was in there for 8 days, but by the end of it, feeling started to come back in my legs. I was quite surprised, and by about day 7, 8, I was able to stand up. And there was a fair bit of they were pretty relieved. They couldn't believe that those things were happening. But
yeah, that must have been so scary, huh?
Yeah, it was.
And for your wife too.
Yeah. So that's probably the thing I felt, is that we had this perfect life. Like, she works really hard and in the pharmacy and doing all her stuff, and she's had to put up with a crippled husband. 6 months into a marriage. Yeah, it's not I don't like putting.
And were you thinking you didn't want to be a burden?
No.
Or is that how you probably felt? Yeah, she obviously didn't feel like that.
No, and that's probably the thing, is that I never want to be a burden on someone else. Ever. So if I've got a problem, that's probably my issue, is that, and like most guys, they hold it in. You don't want to hassle anyone with your problems.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather go out and help people as much as I can. But they always say that the people who are always helping others are probably the ones who need the help. And that's how they're coping with it. And that's how I cope with it now. I know that I've gone through those struggles, and and just trying to understand that if I can help someone else, it's actually helping me as well. So.
And you do that a lot, mate. Like, the first time I ever met you was, I remember I did for Are You OK? You're an ambassador for them guys.
Yeah.
Which is great. And then the 24, my mate Phil owns Anytime Fitness, and there was a challenge, 24-hour challenge, and he said, why don't you do been there, done that, let's chat, and stay on one for 24 hours. Yeah. And myself, I can do that. That'd be pretty easy, just walk for 24 hours. And mate, I remember you come down at about maybe 8 o'clock at night first, and I'd only just met you, and you're next to me, and then you said, mate, I'll come back later on. And I remember you come, and this is how good a bloke you are, and like, not rapping you because you're here, but mate, I still remember, like, you come back down about 10 o'clock at night, and you stayed with me till about 4 a.m. I remember. Yeah. And mate, if you weren't there, I would have quit.
Mate, that was the hardest thing I've probably ever done.
I would have quit. And then even not even that, mate. And then you had to go to work. I remember you had to leave at 4 a.m. to go to work. But I still remember you rang a mate at 4 a.m. Jeff Young.
Yeah.
And mate, and got him to come down to help me out. So thanks for that, buddy, because you got me through that, mate.
Mate.
And I tell that story to boys. That's the first time I've never met you before. Yeah. And you stayed there all night and then got your mate to come down at 4 a.m., which is good on him too.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I couldn't believe it when he goes, I'm in. And I'm like, yeah, perfect. And that's what I mean. Like, it's for me, it's helping others out. Like, it doesn't matter if I don't know someone or anything like that. If you can help someone, mate, you just go ahead and do it, and that's what I mean. Like, there's been plenty of times when I've seen people struggling. I wouldn't know them from a bar of soap, but you see it on social media. I notice the signs of cries for help.
Yep.
You just break down the barriers, like,
because and you don't, and mate, it's hard to notice as well when people need it because, mate, with my story, you probably know my story too, but mate, the day I went to take my own life, mate, I got home that afternoon and coached my girls' OzTag team. I was coaching my daughter's OzTag team. They were like, the little girls were probably about under 8s or something, and I turned up to OzTag that afternoon, smiling, not happy obviously, but pretending to be, and no one knew any different, so it's pretty hard, man. You don't know what people are going through and stuff, hey?
No, and that's, and it's not like the sliding doors moment, but 1 second can change the way that you look at life, like.
Well, perspective, isn't it? Yeah, it is, for sure.
So you could have someone right on the edge, and then someone talks to them, they go, hey, like, I'm going to go the other way. They could have gone, if no one came and spoke to me, my life's finished.
Well, that's it, yeah. It doesn't take much sometimes to change it.
And that's, I've seen it all too often. Like, a friend of mine tried to take her own life and messaged me just before she did it and said, I love you. And I'm like, that's a weird message.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get in contact with her and all that, and I called her friends that she lived with and ended up, they got to her in time and saved it, but there's plenty of people out there that don't actually leave that message or try to reach out before they do it, and it's scary.
That's it, man. I remember at a luncheon at the Lions Club not long ago, you got up and talked and you told a bit about your own experience with that.
Yeah.
Are you happy to share that?
It's it's one of those things that after the broken neck or in the process of it, I had to lay down because of the fusion and the fragile part of the neck that it was in. Sort of laid flat for 8 weeks. Wasn't allowed to do much. And I remember sitting there and I told my wife, and as I said, I was able to move. I was able to move my feet, so things were looking good. And but then being there alone, knowing that all the boys were training, everyone had their own life, I literally was told I'd never play footy again. So everything I knew, even though I was prepared for life after football, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And you have your painkillers there, and obviously it's I don't ever condone anything like that. I don't take painkillers now or anything like that. But you knew that a substantial amount could finish it. And I remember thinking, I'm done. I'm like, I got sick of my wife coming home and feeding me and me just laying there, and I thought, okay, I'll crack all these pills. And my phone was going off, and it was some of the boys from footy trying to connect. Like, no, I'm not at training. Hey, we want to catch up with Rossi. They kept calling and calling. I just kept rejecting their phone calls. And back in the day, it was only not the phones we have now, so they could FaceTime and all that kind of stuff. So, and literally, as I had them all ready to go, my phone rang again, and I was like, I'm not going to answer this. And as I went to do it, their two heads popped up over the balcony. I lived on a ground floor unit, and they're knocking on the window. Hey, come in! We want to come in. And I was like, oh, and it's they didn't know at the time, and they didn't know until a few weeks ago, or probably a few months ago now.
Yeah,
but
wow.
They were what they really did until I actually spoke about it and came out about it. But they literally saved my life. It's
so lucky, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and it was Kevin Kingston and Reece Williams that I played with, two really good fellas, and they.
So you just felt at that time like you felt. I know when I was in that position, I just felt like no hope, like hopeless, like nothing to look forward to. Yeah, nothing,
and that's probably the mindset people get in. Like they don't have a clear vision. Like you're clouded, and that's what I mean. Like I talk to people now, and I'm like, if I was stuck in a wheelchair, there's so many things that you can still do. Yeah. Even I talk to I've been lucky enough to work in charities and deal, and talking to people like Nathan Stapleton, who unfortunately had his neck injury and he's now full. But it's just it's those things. His outlook on life is so much better than what I was. His clarity is good, and all it takes is that one moment, really, and that's what you got to.
Yeah, you just got to change your perspective a little bit, hey.
Yeah.
And you got to realise too that, like, you know, your wife cared so much about, like, there is people that you think there's no hope, but they're not thinking like that.
Yeah.
You know
well, and that's the thing. I talk to people now about it, and I go, you may think you're doing yourself a favour and everyone else a favour by doing what you're thinking about doing, but it's not. Like, the pain that you go through, like, we're now talking about Kieran Foran's stepson. Who just took his own life.
Yeah.
You think, what about the pain that all those families have gone through, and the grandparents, and, mate, it's not just about the one person. You affect so many.
Yeah, it affects a lot of people. Yeah. Which people have got to think like that, hopefully.
Yeah.
And just talk. Like, that's the main thing, I think, to talk.
Yeah.
So you've had, you had pretty bad run of injuries in that, mate. And then also the footy show, the famous or infamous arm wrestle on the footy show. So for those that don't know, Benny, obviously, you know, high-profile footballer. There was a footy show that used to play on Channel 9, and they had an arm wrestling, bit of a promotional thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I worked for the Men of League Foundation.
Yep.
So we had this idea to raise money through the footy show, and footy show was so supportive of that type of charity. And
it was a big show back then.
Big show.
Popular.
Yeah. And we said, okay, we'll get 8 fellas together. We'll have an arm wrestling competition. Winner takes out, fundraising every week, so forth, and going through. And we had the 8 fellas. Obviously, I worked for the foundation, so I wasn't going to go in it. And then Jason Stevens pulled out. So, Jace, you listen to this. Thanks very much. But he pulled out, and they needed someone. So I thought, I've never lost an arm wrestle. I'll go in. First few weeks was quite easy. Like, fighting, I had Josh Perry. I don't know who else. But I won quite easily. And then on the other side, Wendell Saylor was going through his players the exact same. And we both never lost an arm wrestle. And then coming to the grand final, it was a big hoo-ha. And we're both mucking around going, hey, we've never lost, but hey, no one ever knew of a broken arm from an arm wrestle.
Yeah.
So the first one we got in, and we're like, okay, who's going to win? And I remember the first one going, and something didn't feel right, and I sort of let him win. And he came at me and he goes, I know you let me win. It was best of 3. And we walked off. They had a bit of a segment, then you come back for your second one. And he goes, no, be serious. Second one, you go hard. And I'm like, oh, okay. And when we got into the position, they ended up strapping our hands together. Oh. And we're both like, that's not legally you're not supposed to do that. It's like a rule in arm wrestling, and we didn't know. And they had a professional arm wrestling guy there to do it all, and oh well, let's just do it. And I thought, if I'm going to beat him, because he's strong, he's a strong man.
Yeah, he's a big fella, yeah.
Big. I thought, I've got to get him at the start, because once you're over that angle, you know you're in.
Yep.
And what they teach you in arm wrestling and we didn't know, is to look at your hand at all times. If you move away and look away, it changes the angle of your arm and it'll snap. But I thought, okay, I've got to beat Wendell. I'm going to throw everything into this, the first one. And when they went ready, 3, 2, 1, go, I looked away to throw my arm like that, and it just went the other way and snapped. So it shattered into about 10 or 12 pieces.
So bone up here, eh?
Yeah, so the humerus, which wasn't too humerus, but yeah, so elbow out, shoulder out, and shattered into about 10 or 12 pieces.
Oh, yeah.
So
I remember it looked like it just, like, your arm just went wobbly, like just snapped.
Just
off,
dropped. I remember looking, so it's still attached to Wendell, and the whole arm was down, like, below the bench. I was like, oh, so something, 5 vials of morphine later, and on the way to the hospital.
Yeah, shit.
Yeah. So but that probably took more of a toll in a different, like we talk about how much your mind, like with a broken neck, how much I thought about how I'm letting other people down. Yep. I had PTSD from this, so there were nights where I'd wake up just hearing a big snap.
Yeah,
I could hear that snap and wasn't sleeping, and it was quite difficult. It was a different type of difficult.
Yep.
So knowing that I love working out and coming back from a broken neck, I could still use my arms and my legs, and then being told that, like, I still can't do push-ups properly, don't lift heavy.
Still to this day.
Yeah, so those type of things. But yeah, all these, and that's, I mean, it sounds like all these bad things are happening to me, but I feel like they're also good things, because then I can speak to people and go, hey, life's not that bad. Like, you take the reality of it and go, it's just a broken bone, or it's a bad day. It's not. I remember, and people go, just think about it. You go home to your kids. They don't know you're a professional footballer or you're struggling at work.
Yeah.
They know you as dad. And if you come in a negative mood, you set them off in a negative. So you always come in with a happy attitude and life's better.
Yeah, well, you've done good to stay strong through that. And on the other flip side of that too, like you say, like a lot of pressure on you, probably other athletes too, like when you're at Cronulla and you sign, like people don't know that you're going through bad days or having bad times. And then I know the same when I had my traumas. I had my mate Scotty, who owned a gym at the time, a Commando Tough, and he's like ex-army, you know, fit bloke. His partner was really fit and, you know, good looking. He had a nice unit at Cronulla, nice Harley, he drives a Range Rover, and everyone's thinking, you know, Scotty's got all his shit together, which everyone would have been looking at you. You're the main man at Cronulla, the front row, first grade. Everyone thinks you're killing it, but deep down, Scotty was struggling. You like people struggle, and you don't realise,
Yeah, and it's, I try to put it back to, like I remember when I finished footy and working, I moved into the administration at the Sharks and dealing with the members, and you cop abuse every week. Oh, like, you know, the Sharks would lose and they'd hammer a player, and we'd get the emails. And I'd write back to them personally and go, you don't understand what these guys are actually going through.
Yeah.
They don't turn up to lose. I remember there were games where, like, we played the Roosters and we should have won. They beat us by 40, and no matter what we tried to do, we couldn't fix it. But the fans would look at it and go, oh, they're crap, they're not putting the effort in, and I turned it back onto them and said, listen, are there days when you go to work where you feel like everything is going wrong? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, that happens in a game.
Happens to
the game is 80 minutes of your week. They're still training 12, 14-hour days, and riding that roller coaster of sport. You know, you win, you're going up. You lose, you get bagged. It's unforgiving. Like, professional sport isn't what it's all cracked up to be.
No, and plus you're in the public eye all the time as well.
Correct.
So you can't do much as well,
Yeah, and that's I suppose that people go, oh, they're professional athletes. They and it is. You choose that life to go on a professional athlete. There are standards. You can't go out like old school. We used to go out drinking and partying all the time, but
when there was no phones and cameras and stuff,
all that kind of stuff, and it was relaxed. But now you understand that. I didn't realise like how much of a role model you are to kids.
Yeah.
Like, and now I see it with my kids and go, hey, like, they love the players. Like, my son is Nathan Cleary mad, like every kid. But anything he does, he wants to be just like him. So if Nathan Cleary was on the drink or whatever, and my son saw that, it's okay to get on the drink. And now you realise all that type of stuff, and players do as well now.
Yeah.
Like
a bit more education towards it now, eh?
That's it.
And with the mental health side of it, with the athlete, they do a bit more with the NRL now.
Yeah. And that's the best thing. I suppose I started my journey back into football being a wellbeing manager of the Sharks.
Yep.
So helping all the young boys come through and understanding state of mind and making sure. And that's the NRL are making like headway through that. But I don't know if you can ever do enough to help.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I love what you do now and opening up. I know a lot of guys who are able to talk to me and I can talk to them, but there's always ones that there aren't. And I always wonder, how do you get to those people? And it's things like this where they realise they're not alone. That's
what we're hoping with this, mate. Like, you tell your story, other people tell their stories, and it might relate to someone else, you know, and hopefully it helps the fella think like they watch this and say, oh shit, Benny Ross had a tough time too, you know, but might not have known that, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're doing great with it, mate. Now, what advice would you give to fellas out there that are tough times, mate, and how you got through yours, and you got any words of wisdom, mate?
Words of wisdom. Funny enough, the best thing you can ever do, and you say, is talk to someone. Like, I had a mate yesterday, a very, very one of my closest mates, and we were talking, and we don't see each other as much, probably once a week now.
Yep.
And it's sort of, he called and just chatting away, and he goes, oh, I think I'm just in a rut. And I said, oh, yeah, mate, I'm always here to listen to you. And he literally just went bang and started talking. And an hour later, he's like, I really needed that. But he was too scared to actually bring it up. And that's probably the main thing. Anyone is don't ever be scared. Don't ever be scared to say that you're hurting, or hey, we all go through it. There's days where I feel like the world's ending and I think I can't talk to someone, but I'm lucky that I've got a really good wife to understand, and if not, I've got my kids. Well, I don't really talk to them about, but they make you get back into the present, not thinking about the other stuff. But it's funny, my wife goes, like, I love to talk about, if I'm struggling, talk to someone and get through the point. And she goes, right now I've got a big Rottweiler. He's nearly a year old, but he's like my best mate. So, and she says, I sit downstairs with him and pat him, and it looks like we're having like a talk every night about life. And it is. It's sort of, And it's for me, I sort of look at him and I start talking about what's happening, and he's just happy. And so, yeah, it's probably the thing is that people are listening. If you're listening to this, if your mate does come to you and they're struggling, just listen to them.
Yeah, sometimes you don't have to say anything.
You don't have to say anything. You just have to be there for them and tell them you love them. You don't have to give them an answer. Everyone knows the answer.
Yeah.
Like, you're struggling and you can listen and they answer it themselves.
Yeah.
Like, they do. They come through and you... Yeah, I didn't have to say anything to my mate in an hour. He actually told me it all, and he told me how he's going to fix it. Like,
and done.
Just done. And he's
listen.
like, oh, yeah. And I said 2 words, probably.
Yeah. And I think the hardest thing too, mate, like you said, growing up, you're a hard country Queensland rugby league player, front rower, toughest position on the field. Yeah. And like my dad always said to me growing up too, like we grew up, you know, sort of pretty tough, and he always said to me, like, oh, if you want to be hard, you got to do hard things, you know. And I think the hardest thing ever, like, and for a tough bloke like you've seen before talking about it, like, that's hard to do, to ask for help and to talk like that. Yeah. I think that makes you hard. You know what I mean? That's what I think. So the hardest thing I've ever done is told my story to my kids and stuff. And so, yeah, that's... if doing that's hard, you know, that makes you hard. I think not weak.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It is probably the hardest thing. You see me, I break down every time I think about it. It's just... Yeah, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life is to come back from where I was and do what like I do now, and being able to tell other people.
And to chat about it. It's harder than probably running into the front rows in State of Origin, mate, almost.
Give me that any day of the week. Sitting in here and being like, I do. I get scared about talking about it because, you do. You think people think you're weak, and it's that mentality.
The opposite.
It's the opposite. And, and that mentality, and I hate it because no matter how much it's been instilled in me, I try to get out of it and I can't. Like I find myself saying to my son, don't cry on the footy field or whatever. And then I think, no, actually, if you're hurt, then do it. Like, and I sort of give him cuddles and that afterwards. But it's just that mentality of, the tough love, which I don't agree with. Yep. But I do it. It's in my body. Yeah. So you got to start early. You got to start early with people, and hopefully it changes. Yeah. Well, mate, I think you're doing a good job, and thanks for coming in today, Benny. I appreciate it. And you're a champion, mate. Like I said, the story I told when I first met you, mate. Great bloke. Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, Benny. Anytime. Appreciate it. Cheers. Thanks, thank you.